Welcome back. In this lesson, we are going to learn about entity permissions. We will learn what type of permissions can be applied to what type of objects in Databricks. We will also learn about the hierarchy of the secureable objects. In the last, we will review the principles in Databricks. Let's start. The entity permissions. In Unity Catalog, data is secure by default. Initially, users have no access in the MetaStore. Access can be granted by either a MetaStore admin, the owner of the object, or the owner of the catalog or schema that contains the object. Hierarchical and privileges are inherited downwards. This means that the granting a privilege on catalog automatically grants the privilege to current and future objects within the catalog. Similarly, privileges granted on a schema are inherited by all current and future objects within the schema. Secureable objects such as views and tables in Unity Catalog are hierarchical and privileges are inherited downwards. The highest level object that privileges are inherited from is the catalog. You can assign and revoke permissions using Data Explorer, SQL commands, or REST APIs. Privileges or permissions can be granted by either a MetaStore admin, the owner of the object, or the owner of the catalog or schema that contains the object. You can manage privileges for MetaStore objects by using SQL commands or in Data Explorer. To manage privileges in SQL, you can use grant or revoke statements in Notebook or in the Databricks SQL query editor using the syntax grant privilege type on secureable objects to principal, where privilege type is the Unity Catalog privilege type. Secureable object is a secureable object in the Unity Catalog, for example a table. Principal is a user, service principal represented by its application ID value or group. You can enclose users, service principal and group names with special characters in Databricks. For example, grant create table on schema to default to finance team. Let us discuss privilege type, secureable object and principal in detail. A privilege is a right granted to principal to operate on secureable object in a MetaStore. Let us discuss the privilege types and its applicable object types. Select, if applied to a table or a view, allows a user to select from a table or view. If the user also has use catalog on its parent catalog and use schema on its parent schema, if applied to a share, this allows user to select from the share. Next is create. This gives ability to create an object. For example, a table, view, schema, catalog or an external location. Modify allows user to add or update or delete data to or from the table. If the user has select on the table as well, use catalog on its parent catalog and use schema on its parent schema. Use. This privilege does not grant access to the catalog itself, but it is needed for a user to interact with any object within the catalog. For example, to select data from a table, users will need to have the select privilege on that table and use catalog privileges on its parent catalog as well as use schema privileges on the parent schema. The create allows a user to create a table, view, schema, catalog or an external location. Read files allows a user to read files directly from your cloud object storage. The write volume allows a user to add, remove, or modify files and directories stored inside a volume. Write files allow a user to write files directly into your cloud object storage. This could be for a volume or an external location. The execute allows a user to invoke a user-defined function or load a model for inference. The all privileges is used to grant or revoke all privileges applicable to a secureable object and its child object without explicitly specifying them. When all privilege is revoked, only the all privileges itself is revoked. Users still retain any other privileges that are granted to them separately. Securable objects. A securable object is an object defined in Unity Catalog Metastore on which privileges can be granted to a principal. Securable objects in Unity Catalog are hierarchical. This is the high level hierarchy of the securable objects. The securable objects are, for example, Metastore. Metastore is the top level container for metadata. Each Unity Catalog Metastore exposes 3 level namespace: catalog, schema, and table that organizes your data. The catalog is the first layer of the object hierarchy used to organize your data assets. The schema, also known as the databases, schema are the second layer of the object hierarchy and contains tables or views. The table is the lowest level in the object hierarchy. Tables can be external, stored in external locations in your cloud storage of choice, or managed tables, stored in storage container in the cloud storage that you create expressly for Databricks. A view is a read-only object created from one or more tables that is contained within the schema. Then the volume. This is the lowest level in the object hierarchy. Volumes can be external, stored in an external locations in your cloud storage of choice, or managed. External location is an object that contains a reference to a storage credential and a cloud storage path that is contained within Unity Catalog Metastore. Storage credential is an object that encapsulates a long-term cloud credential that provides access to cloud storage that is contained within a Unity Catalog Metastore. Registered model is an machine learning flow, a ML registered model that is contained within a schema. A function is a user-defined function that is contained within the schema. We will see user-defined functions in the Unity catalog. Then a share. A share is a logical grouping of tables that you intend to share using delta sharing. A share is contained within a Unity catalog metastore. The last is the recipient. This is an object that identifies an organization or group of users that can have data shared with them using delta sharing. These objects are contained within Unity Catalog Metastore. Next is the principals. Principals could be a user, service principals, or groups. A user is an individual with an email address, for example, a developer or an administrator. Service principal are used for service accounts for tools and softwares to authenticate automated scripts, tools, apps, and systems with Databricks Workspace and resources. Databricks recommends that you use authentication credentials for service principals instead of Databricks Workspace user credentials. This can be used to deploy or manage Workspace externally, for example, through Terraform. Groups are the collection of users or emails or subgroups. For example, a developers group or admin group or a group of testers. Thank you.